got out of service in January of 1957, and the local jeweler in town was in the Air Force Reserve. So I started going to the reserve meetings with him, and sometimes I would go up to his jewelry store and hang around and do a little this, that, and the other. And he asked me one day, he says, "Why don't you go to school to be a watchmaker?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't know where to go." He said, "Well, I know where you can go." He says, "Bolivar has a school in New York City." He says, I'll get the address and I'll write them a letter about it if you want me to." I said, "Sure, fine." They sent back and accepted me for a student. And this was in 1959. And they gave me 2 dates that I could start. Got a taxi driver, told him that I didn't need to go to Woodside. He said, that's across the river." I said, "Well, don't you go across the river?" He said, "Oh yeah, get in, I'll take you." I said, "How much is this going to cost?" He says, "I don't know, about $7, $8, which is a lot of money to me back then." I said, "Well, I got to get there." He drops me off in front of this big building that said Bolivar in front of it, and they let me in. They take me across and give me a room in the dormitory, and that's where I started out at the Bolivar School of Watchmaking. Finger dexterity and such as that. That's the first thing we did, finger dexterity, and learn how to put a loop in our eye, and how to use a loop, how to use a screwdriver, how to use a pair of tweezers. We had little round blocks, about 1.5 inches round, 5/8 of an inch thick, and it had about 100 holes drilled in the top of that thing, drilled and tapped, and there was like a 10 AK Bolivar bridge screw screwed in the top of all those holes, about 100 of them in the top of that little block. And we had to, gave us a set of screwdrivers. We had to sharpen a screwdriver and match it to the slot in the head of that screw. And learn how to use our loop. They gave us a little tray. They said, "Now here's what you do. You take a screw out, take your tweezer up, pick your screw up with your tweezer and put it in the tray. Lay your tweezer down, pick up your screwdriver and take another screw out." Said, "Now put them back in one at a time." So I pick them up, put the screw in, and he said, "Now when you get them all in, let me know." So I put them all back in and called Mr. Tepper over there, and he looked at it with his loop, and he said, "Well, this one here, this one's got a little scratch on it." Says, "You can't have scratches on a screw head." So yep. So he took some polishing paper, and they were all screwed in tight. Took some polishing paper and run the head of those screws over the polishing paper to get all the scratches off. Do it again. Then he gave me some 18 size balance wheels. I don't know, about 10 of them, I think. He looked, made sure I didn't upset the truth of the wheels. See, he'd look at them, make sure I hadn't warped them or whatever. So he said, "All right, put screws back in." So I had put all the screws back in the wheels. We had to learn how to stake the balance staff. So we'd stake a balance staff and call it Tupper. Tupper would look at it. If it was warped, he'd tell you, you did so and so, you didn't do this right, didn't do that right. So, but after the 10th one, after the 3rd or 4th one, I did pretty good. The rest of it was all right. The next thing is that we did, and we started basic lathe work. Take a brass rod and cut it off so many millimeters long, square off both ends, and turn it down to a certain diameter. And I got them over here in the box. And we made about 5 or 6 of those little various size brass, I don't know what you call it, but then we made, did some out of steel, cut up them in a certain length, certain diameter, and then we started, after doing the brass and the stand, that brass and the steel cylinders, you call them, we started making a huge balance staff, So, well, it's kind of huge, but it's bigger than an 18 size anyway. But just for a practice to get to know what a balance staff looked like and how to cut one, how to make the groove in it and all this stuff. And once we had learned how to do a little cutting on a lathe, of course we had to learn how to sharpen that lathe,
Graver?
yeah, graver. We started out with steel gravers, and we had a India oil stone, and we had to sharpen that graver on that India oil stone, and the bottom of that thing had to be perfectly flat. And they had these guys, but they had looked at so many, all they had to do was hold it up to the light and they could tell whether it was flat or not just instantly like that. And if it wasn't flat, hand it back to you. So you know what they had to do. So after we made those little cylinders and what have you, it took about a week or so, I guess, making all those, this, that, and the other. We went down to the machine shop. And we worked at the machine shop, making tools. We made a pallet warmer. We made a truing caliper for truing hairspring truing caliper, and I got one around somewhere that I made. The pallet warmer we made. And we had to learn how to turn out a piece of round stock and make a spring out of it, grind it down halfway to make a spring, made the heating block to put the pallet on to heat it up, and had to learn how to, well, I knew how, but we had to silver solder a block of brass onto a piece of sheet brass for heat sink, and make all those things. And we made more balance staffs. We made a balance staff for a 10AK watch, and put it in the watch, but without the roller or the hairspring. We just put the balance staff in the wheel, and put the wheel in the watch, so it would intrude the wheel, or learn how to true a wheel. I left that out before, when we was on staffs. After we put the balance staffs in the 18 size balance wheels, we learned how to true those balance wheels. And then later on, we got down to the 10AK, which was a 10-line Bulliver watch. We put staffs in those and true them.
Wasn't that the one they used for the military? It was in their wristwatches too, I think.
Beg pardon?
Was that caliber in their wristwatches too, that the military had, I think?
Yes, that's where they got the old movements from. Some that they had either didn't sell to the military or bought them back from the military. But the World War II Bulliver GI watch, there were three basic Bulliver movements used. A regular 10AK that had the small second hand, then they had a 10AK sweep second, and then they had a 10AK sweep second with a hack. I forget it. I got it out in there. That when the sweep second got up to 0, you could pull a stem out and it would stop it, and then everybody synchronized the watch, push the stem in, and everybody had the same time.
Yeah. And
I've seen those things in these movies, and after I knew what a hack was, they synchronized their watches, and everybody have a watch on. There's this captain or something in front of them and says, "All right, everybody synchronize the watch," and then he say they'd be looking at an electric clock, and the clock get up to 12. He say hack, and everybody push in, but it didn't tell them where to set the clock. That's where to set the watch. George Borthwick was the instructor. He's a good old boy, and somebody had showed me a little pin vise. There was two pieces. One was a sleeve, and one was a nut that went inside the sleeve on one end, and you put a collet from your lathe in the other end, and you could make a pin vise out of any lathe collet, any size from 1 to 50, however much one. So I said I wanted to make one of these. So I got me some steel, and George had a tap and a die that matched the thread on the lathe collet. So I cut it all out, and I had threaded the inside of the nut for my collet, and I wanted some polishing paper. Well, the lathe I was using, I believe it was a Hardinge, but I forget anyhow. It would have high speed to low speed, forward and backward, and just 2 rods with a knob on that. You put in whatever gear speed you wanted, or rather whatever direction you were going in, and then you turn it on or off. You turn it this way to go forward, this way to go backward. Well, I was sitting there, I had put the collet in the lathe, put the one I was working on in the lathe collet of the big lathe, and there's a spanner wrench that goes on the handle over here to tighten it up. So I had put the spanner wrench over there and tightened the lathe up, collet, and George came by. I said, George, I need some polishing paper. All right, come on, go with me. So I went around his little closet, and he handed me a sheet of polishing paper, a half a sheet. You wouldn't give me the whole sheet. So I go around that, and I go back there, and dummy me, that spanner wrench is still hanging on the handle.
Oh, Lord.
I kicked that thing in gear, and it went straight up to the ceiling. Now, he'd had all these 4-foot fluorescent lights up there in the ceiling with these glass covers all over them. That handle went up and hit that glass cover and broke that glass cover into 10,000 pieces, I believe.
Oh, man. Ooh.
Which one of the worst part of it, when the wrench came down, it hit me on the head. So I was standing there. George, he was scared the heck out of him. I did cut the lathe off. He come running over to me. He says, Smith, what happened? What happened? I says, the wrench flew up. And I was standing there feeling on my head, and I had that, and there was blood on my fingers. He said, come on, go with me. And he almost carried me into the nurse's station right across the hall there. So of course, and the nurse we had, she washed it and clipped a few hairs off and dried it up and put a Band-Aid on it. And she made me, says, you can no more school today. Says, you go upstairs in the dormitory and says, you go to bed, stay there till tomorrow. I says, I'm all right. No, you go to bed. So anyway, but I scared the heck out of George. I don't know who cleaned up all that glass, but it bet that thing broke into 1,000 pieces, I guess.
Wow.
When I got to the school, I was wearing a Hamilton wristwatch. When I was in service in the Air Force, they shipped me overseas to Japan. And they put me on a detail, they call it a PX detail. We go down in the hold of the ship and bring stuff up and put them in the PX up on the sea deck where everybody, the bunks and all were. So during bringing this stuff up, they had every PX had watches on it, a bunch of watches. Well, they had this Hamilton wristwatch in there, what the tank style, that I thought that was the most pretty watch, most beautiful watch I'd ever seen. It was the watch retail for like $81. No, $80.50. That's what it was. And I looked at that thing. And the price in the PX was $40.25. And I looked at how much money I had in my pocket. Of course, now I was just in third class at the time, and my paycheck was like $78 a month. So, and I had spent a bunch of money on the way from North Carolina to California to start with. And by that time, I looked and I had about $45. So I didn't know, nobody knew it right then, but anyhow, that we were going to stop in Hawaii. They had some people on there, some Marines that they were shipping to Hawaii, so they had to stop the ship in Hawaii for them to get off. So the day before I found out I was going to get off the ship, I said, to heck with it, I'm going to buy that watch. So I went out and bought the watch, and I was wearing it. And we got off the ship and stopped the ship in Hawaii, and they let everybody off for about 4 hours. So we went down to Honolulu. I walked by the Royal Hawaiian Hotel.
Wow.
Walked around the beach and back. Did not stick my finger in the water. Well, we had our uniform on. They wouldn't let us off the ship unless we were in Class A uniforms. So we wandered around there, and around the back of the Royal Hawaiian there was what they called a merry-go-round bar. It was a merry-go-round. The bar, I guess, was 80 feet across. Huge thing. And it turned all the time. It'd take about 45 minutes or an hour, I guess, for it to make one revolution all the way around to get back where you got home. And so we had 4 of us running around together. So we sat down there at the merry-go-round bar, and we had us some Budweiser, whatever. And there was a guy out there doing card tricks, so we watched him play card tricks we walked around town a little bit, not too far. We got on close to time to go back to the ship. We got us a taxi to take us back to the ship. We got back on the ship and away we go. So anyway, by the time I got to Yokohama, they called us all to the upper deck. Everybody, night before we got to Yokohama, everybody had to turn in all the American money they had in dollar bills or whatever. And then the next day they would give you MPCs. Well, I didn't have but 15 cents left. So I didn't even go because I didn't have any dollar bills to change.
Yeah, but you had a Hamilton watch.
Well, I knew that when I got there, they had already told us that when we got to Yokohama, one of the first things they would do would get paid. You got to go through the pay line. So when I got to Yokohama, I went through the pay line and got paid, but I didn't have any money to change. Anyway, when I got back to going through school, I was wearing that Hamilton watch. And after I got there, I'd learned how to regulate a watch. Some of the older students had told me this, that, and the other. So I kept on fiddling with that Hamilton until I got it where it would keep just about perfect time. It wouldn't vary 2 seconds a day. So we were sitting in the break room, lunch room, what do you want to call it, eating lunch one day, and there was 4 of us that were playing cards. George Borford, Layla Kalana, who was a stenographer upstairs, clerk or whatever you want to call it, and me and another guy. So George, he was sitting there one day and he said, "How much time before the bell rings?" And I looked at my watch and I said, 18 seconds. He said, "What do you mean 18 seconds?" I said, 18 seconds. And he looked at me kind of funny. So 18 seconds, but the bell rang. So the next day, we were sitting there, and he happened to say, looked at me and said, "How much time we got left?" I was going to watch, and I told him how much it was, and I took it off. I said, "Yeah." I said, "That was small second hand." I said, when the second hand gets to 12, the bell rang. And he looked at it, and sure enough, when the bell rang, when they got to 12, the bell rang. He said, "Who regulated this watch?" I said, "I did." He handed it back to me. Okay. but we had after the uh, part of the course that was in the machine shop, we went back upstairs on the main floor of the school and went through, I think the first thing we did was 18 size hairsprings. I gave you some 18 size steel hairsprings, a bunch of collets, and some brass pins. They gave you some number 5 tweezers to go with your number 1s and number 3s that they had given you before. And in fact, I don't believe they gave us number 5s back then, right then. But anyhow, we had to learn how to break out the center of a hairspring so that the collet would fit in the center. And then you had to make a tongue, straighten out the inside of the last half, about a third of coil or less, into a straight tongue that would go into the hole in the hairspring collet. And you had when you put a brass pin in it, and when you got through, that collet was supposed to be centered in the center of that hairspring as close as you would get it. And you take your pliers and you grab the end of that brass pin and pull it and break it off. Reach out and take the other end and break it off. And then you would mount the hairspring collet and hairspring onto the 18 size balance wheels that we had in the first part of the course, where we had put the screws in and out and put stake the balance staffs. Well, then we learned how to true a balance staff, a hairspring. Well, I made the first one, and instructor, I hadn't put it on the wheel, but took it up to my instructor, who was Viola Wellman. The little gal, she had worked at the factory for years, and she was about 4'9" tall, I think, or something like that, a little under 5 feet, but she's kind of chunky. Anyway, I showed her the mine. She said, "Okay, that's good." Says, "It looks good." Says, "Put it on the wheel and true it." All right. Well, we'd had training films, show us how to true a balance, hairspring and whatnot. So I put it on the wheel, and I made my little hairspring truing caliper that I made in the shop. I put it in there, and I sit there with my loop, and I'm spinning that wheel. And you're supposed to spin it, you're supposed to adjust that hairspring, or manipulate it, they say, until it looks like when you throw a stone in the water and you see the ripples come out, it's supposed to go straight out with no bouncing around, what have you. And it's not supposed to go up and down like this, it's supposed to go straight out. Well, I kept on feeling, but I couldn't see a thing wrong with that wheel. I said, "I know this is the first one I've ever seen or put together." I said, "But I can't see nothing wrong with it to myself." I said, "I'll go give it to Vi and see what she said." So I took it over there and I gave it to Viola. She looked at it, she spun it. She said, "Go make me 9 more exactly like it." I swear to you, I never touched that hairspring after I pulled the pin through it and broke the pin off. It was centered perfectly. It was perfect in the round and the flat. I've never touched that.
Somebody looking down on you said, "We're going to give him a little hand here."
Now, the second one took me a day and a half to do. I had to make 10 of those, I believe it was. And it took me all week. To make those 10 hairsprings. But the first one, I made it perfect the first time. And that's the only time everything I've done was perfect the first time, I believe. But it worked for me that time.
Wow.
So after we got all the hairsprings, 18 size hairsprings, collared and mounted on it, then they gave us, I don't know, we may already have it. Anyway, we had to vibrate the hairspring, and once we got it vibrated like we wanted, we would break the hairspring off 1/4 of a way around the spring. We'd break it off a quarter, 1/4 way around, and we'd take it back to Vi, and she would clip it a quarter. Hopefully she'd pick it up the same place we did. Anyway, she would have to okay them, but after we vibrated all the hairsprings, then we'd start out on 10AK hairsprings. We went from 18 size to 10AK. They give you a bunch of raw hairsprings. 10AK, well, they gave us the watch too. 10AK movements. You had to put a balance staff in the watch, balance wheel, put a roller on it, true it, and after we had different instructors this time. We went from Viola Wellman to Georgia Jamian. He was the assistant to the chief watchmaker, chief instructor. He taught 10AK hairsprings and some others. So we would have to put the staff in, put the roller on, true the balance wheel, and take it to George, and he would okay them, and then he'd tell you, make me 10 hairsprings. so you had to put the collet, 10AK hairspring on the collet, pull the pin, and then you trued the hairspring, and you made the whole hairspring, vibrated, and put the stud on, bring up the overcoil and flatten it out, and put the overcoil out on the second coil of the main body of the hairspring. And you take it up, and George would look at it. All right, go put it in a watch. So you put it in a watch, of course, and then you had to true it to the watch.
Right.
You know, level it, get it centered in the pins and all this stuff. And you take it up to George, and he'd look at it. Well, it's low at 3 o'clock, or it's high at 4 o'clock, or this, and you go twiddle with it. And when you get all 10 of them finished, all 10 of those hairsprings, and you take them up there, and he kept the box with all with the hairsprings in it, balance assemblies, and you take your 10th one up there, and he'd take it out and put it in the box. He said, "Hang on." This was the heartbreaking part. He'd take that 10AK balance wheel in his hand, and he'd take his tweezers and grab that stud with his hairspring tweezers and stretch that hairspring out. All 10 of them that you had just made. And he would say, "Go make me 10 more." Well, the first one took me about 3 days. I knew what, to get it okayed and everything. But the last one, I think I made one about 2 hours. And I got used to it, And the last one took, like, say, about 2 hours to get it okay. But
So how many weeks did you do that?
Well, I don't know. Those grade sheets I gave you, you can probably figure it out from
I'll
those
look on the grade sheets, yeah.
Because it's listed on basic hairsprings and 10AK hairsprings or whatever you were doing, assembly, this, that, and the other. But when I first went to the school, the only income I had was, I think, $115 a month from the GI Bill. And my rent was, they charged $40 a month for the rent, plus they charge for your meals, and I forget exactly how much that was. And if you use the laundry facilities, it costs you $5 a month to use the wash machine and dryer and all this stuff. And anyway, you had to pay, it had some bills you had to pay. So Mr. Lipton had got me a job across the street at the Research and Development Laboratory. Every day at lunchtime, I'd go over at 12 o'clock, or close to it. And when the employees in the R&D went through the line in the cafeteria, I was the cashier for one of them. And I worked as cashier at the cafeteria there the whole time I was there. I got $1.25 a day plus my lunch. I got $5.25 a week plus my 5 lunches. So, while I was there, it'd take about 20 or 30 minutes for all the people to come through and to get their lunch, and they'd be eating. And when the crowd got thin enough, I'd go get my lunch and go sit down and eat. So I got to talking to some of those engineers or people that were working there. And I asked the guy one day, I said, "What do y'all do in here?" He said, "Oh, we're making a new watch." I said, "What kind of new watch?" He said, new altogether new different watch. He said, "Instead of a balance wheel," he said, "it works off a tuning fork." I said, "Tuning fork?" He said, "Well, it's got a little spring and jewels and all this stuff. Says it keeps good time." Says, said, "We even have to make our own material to make the watch out of." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we couldn't find any wire small enough to make the coils for this watch." And said we had to make our own wire. And it says it's 6/10,000ths of a millimeter in diameter. And it says then we had to figure out what kind of insulator to put on this wire to insulate the coils from each other. And it says it had to be real thin because if it's too much, it takes up too much space. So he was telling me all about this thing they call Accutron. I'd never heard of it. Nobody else had either. So, and he was telling me about the wire being, he told me 6/10,000 of a millimeter and all this stuff. And it gave me a little heads up on way it worked. So one day, I went back to the school. Whenever I got through eating lunch, I'd go on back to the school across the street. And one day I went back, and there was a guy now named Max Schwartz. Max Schwartz had been the chief watchmaker, a chief instructor at the School of Watchmaking. And he had left the School of Watchmaking and gone across town over to Jackson Heights to be the head watchmaker for the Boulevard Watch Company. He was the chief with cheese. But he'd come back over once in a while to see the guys over there at the school. And when I went in there that day, he and Pat Little, the chief instructor, had their heads together at Pat's desk. Well, nosy me, I go up there to see what's going on. See. Well, I had never seen one, but Max was telling Pat about this new watch. He says, and it had a glass back on it. He took the watch off and he showed Pat the back of that watch, and he says, "See those little orange-colored coils here?" And I had my eyes as close as I could get, because I'd never seen one before. And Pat said, "Yeah." He says, "Pat says that's got the finest wire in those coils that's ever been made." And I had to open my mouth. I said, 6/10,000ths of a millimeter. "Where did you hear that?" I said, "Uh-oh, I knew I'd stepped in it then." I said, "Oh, I read it somewhere." "You didn't read it? It hasn't been written down yet." So I hauled buggy. so Max hung around a little while. After he left, I go up to Pat's desk, workbench. I said, "Pat," I said, "hope I didn't mess up with him." So he might have run me away from him. He said, Pat says, "Don't you worry about him." He said, "I'll take care of you." He said, "But where'd you hear that?" So I told him about what the engineer across the street told me. See, but they had made, I think it was 500 trial run Accutron and cased them and all that stuff. We didn't know what it was about, but a couple of months before that, some guy from the factory had come down to George Borthwick and got him to work on a dial, to chuck it up in a lathe and turn it down it was too big to go in the case they were trying to, but they didn't have that kind of lathe and all that stuff in the R&D for some reason. So anyway, he turned it down for him. And of course me, I asked George, "George, what are you doing?" "Don't worry about it." I said, what were you doing?" He said, "I had to turn the dial down. That's all. Now go away." So I said, "Well, what if it go on?" He said, "I don't know. Don't worry about it." But he did know. They told him what it was. So this guy he'd go up to, he'd come up, his office was downstairs. He had a desk downstairs. And he'd come up to go to Pat Little or Georgia Jamie, whoever was in the desk up there. And I'd see him pointing at me, and he'd come over and they'd ask if they could come get me to go give me a test. So all right, so he'd come over and says, I asked so-and-so if I could give you a test. Will you take a test? "Oh, sure." So we go down, he'd give me a test. I took every kind of test they had, I believe. It was something to do, break the monotony, of sitting there with a loop in your eye, So I never did, they never would tell me the results of the test. That was the worst part. I couldn't find out what they found out. So anyway, one guy left. He must have graduated, and then another guy came in. This was about the end of the year. Another guy came in. He did the same thing. He went through all of my tests too. But I was not the only one he gave. There was 4 or 5 of them they would pick out and give whole my battery of tests to do. But they just used this for guinea pigs.
Sounds like it.
It was handy for them, but it was only one at a time would come over and do all this testing. And like I say, what the names were now, I have no idea. I knew then, but I don't know now. But I remember we went out into the library, and he had that ink blot test. Well, I'd never heard of an ink blot test. so he opened this thing up and said, I'm going to show you a picture. He says, you just tell me what you think it is. Your first impression, And he opened the thing up, and there was what it was, ink blot. Somebody spilled ink and pressed it together. And I told him it was clouds of birds, all that kind of stuff. He wanted to answer, I give him an answer. Now, whether it was right or wrong, there's no right and no wrong. It just depends on what you thought it was and their interpretation of what you said. So one guy might have given you a okay on what your answer was. The next guy might not agree with you. So, but the same answer.
Funny.
But anyway, I stayed there altogether 14 months. And the date of graduation was the 5th of June, I believe it was. No, 6th of June. D-Day. 6th of June, 1961. When, 1960. I went in 59, graduated in 1960, got married in 61. That's the way it was. So they turned me loose, and I usually come visit home about once a month, or once every 2 months or something like that. When I had enough money, I'd catch a bus out of 34th Street Greyhound station, and at 2:45 in the afternoon, by 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd be in North Island. They'd drop me off, and in North Island, and I'd either call my sister or somebody to come get me and pick me up. Sometimes I could even call a taxi. It cost a whole $1 to get from North Island to Warrington on a taxi there. The last time I came home, my brother-in-law had an old Cadillac, and I asked him if I could ride that Cadillac back to New York to haul my tools and clothes and all that stuff. And he said, sure, go ahead. I'd been driving it anywhere where I wanted to. So I drove it back, and I said it was probably around last April, 1st May, somewhere along there. And even drove down what we call uh, Canal Street. Which was a Canal Street was the street that came off the Brooklyn Bridge going over to the Harlem Tunnel. And Harlem Tunnel. And Canal Street and the Bowery, where they crossed right off the bridge, that was the jewelry district of New York City at that time.
Yep.
It eventually moved up to 47th Street.
Right.
But it was more jewelry supplies and watch supplies down there than you could shake a stick right in within 2 or 3 blocks of that cross street. So we would go down there, and there were these people. If you wanted watch parts, there was Sam Mosher and I forget some of those, but anyway, there was watch supply, 3 or 4 watch supply places around there. Plus they had these guys that sold used watch movements and used watches. There was one guy that forget his name now. But anyhow, I go check him every time I go down to Canal Street, and you could buy a beautiful Hamilton 17 or 21 jewel pocket watch movement, just a bare movement, for $20. Well, I didn't have $20 to buy one with. You could get a 17 or 15 jewel 16 size Elgin, just old brass model Elgin, for $1.50.
Wow.
That I could afford. So we go down there and buy all these used watches and stuff down there at the Canal Street. So when I drove the old Cadillac down there a couple of times, and a friend of mine lived in New Jersey, Raritan, New Jersey. He was going home the day that I left, coming back to North Carolina. He says, I told him I was leaving. He said, give me a ride down to Canal Street. I said, you going? He said, you going right by down there? I said, yeah, I'm going to Canal Street. I had to go to Canal Street to go up through the tunnel. Well, anyway, we get on down there, Canal Street. I dropped him off, and I looked at the gas gauge, and that old Cadillac was laying just flat on empty. I said, oh Lord, I got to go through a tunnel. I could just see running out of gas in that tunnel.
In the tunnel.
If you ever saw a bunch of irate policemen,
Oh, yeah.
New York policemen, you didn't want to.
That's true.
So anyway, I nursed that old Cadillac through that tunnel. The first service station I got to in New Jersey, I pulled off and I filled that sucker up. And at that time, New Jersey had the cheapest gasoline in the United States. I filled that tank up at 16 cents a gallon.
Wow.
But at that time, New Jersey didn't have any state taxes on gasoline. They had all kinds of SO refineries from all up and down Newark and all them. So they didn't tax gasoline. So you could get cheap gasoline in New Jersey. And we went to Save the Day. The hotel was down the hill from the British Museum. So it was about 4 or 5 blocks up to the museum. So we walked up there one morning. We go in, all these steps, going up there. And inside there's this guy in the center with a little podium there. And I go up to him and asked him, I said, can you tell me where the watch and clock room is? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Our clock and watch room is closed for repairs. I mean, in the terribly British accent,
Very proper.
At home. So anyway, that's when we came all the way from North Carolina just to see the watch. He said, oh, you're from out of the country. Just one moment, please. he had a phone there. He got on a phone. He called somebody, and this guy, a nice little lady comes up and says, "Oh, take him and show these people what you can of the clock and watch room." All right. So we go around there, just around to the left-hand side, and go in there, and there's, I have no idea where they are, but I got some pictures of it somewhere. Anyway, she said, it's closed for repair. Says, but you can, you can see through the window, you know, it's where the shop was and all that stuff. You can see some clocks and stuff in on the stands that they had been working on, and a whole table full of ship's chronometers, whatever. And grandfather clocks, what we call grandfather, they call tall case, whatever. It one, all sizes. One of them I got a picture of Dot standing beside a clock that's over twice as tall as she.
Wow.
I thought that clock's about 12 feet tall, and about this wide. And
Wow.
not all that big. So anyway, the other guy, everybody else in the tour went to I don't know, somewhere else out of London. So Dot and I went to Greenwich Observatory, caught the train down there, and we go in there, and it's all, well, it's been there since, I think, about the 1500s, and there's, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, about 4 or 5 different sections of it, more or less. And when we were at the British Museum, they had out and these tables out there with stuff in, you know, with glass covers over and all this stuff. And one of them had a little sign there that says, the clock that is usually here is being restored, more or less, something being repaired or restored. But it had a little legend of what kind of clock it was there. They just picked the clock up. When we get over to Greenwich, there's a clock in there, similar to the one that was missing over there. And I was telling Dot, I said, see this clock? I said, over there in the British Museum, I said, where that clock was missing, I said, it was very similar to one of these. And the guy heard me. I said, oh, you're a clockmaker? I said, well, watchmaker, clockmaker. He says, we have a shop here. He says, but it's closed today. Everything's closed today. So, but, anyway, we're going out, and we were about ready to leave. And this guy that we saw up in the museum, he comes out going to lunch, and he saw us. And he called me and said, would you like to go into the watch repair shop? And he says, the main part of it's closed, but you can go in there. I said, sure, it'll be fine. So he went into the guardhouse and called somebody, a nice little young lady, came in and took us back in there. And so it's been more chronometers and ship's clocks.
Wow.
And all this stuff. But she says, you cannot take pictures in here. Says all this stuff, most all this stuff is owned by private owners, and says due to copyright infringement and such as that, said we don't allow pictures in here.
Yeah.
So if we owned them, you could. Like the British Museum, we could take pictures there because they owned everything. So I didn't take any pictures in there. But they have what they call the Octagon Room, where it's one of the oldest parts of the whole place. It's 8 clocks, 2 in the north, south, east, and west wall. By, I forget the old famous clockmaker, all 8 of them. Well, they were 2 seconds beat pendulums, which were 14 feet and 2 inches long.
Wow.
So So that's a pretty long panel. They had taken one of the clock movements out of the original case. Of course, these all built into the wall. They didn't have cases. And set it up on a stand and converted it from a 2 seconds beat to a 1 second beat pendulum with 39 inches, 40 inches, whatever. And it was sitting there in the plastic cover, sitting there running. And the little legend says what they had done to it, said they had converted it from a 2 seconds beat pendulum to a seconds beat royal or deadbeat escapement clock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to look at that thing. It's supposed to be deadbeat. Well, deadbeat, when it ticks, the escape wheel stops, and it stays stopped until it's released by the pallet, and then it goes again. But this one was recoiling. when the wheel escapes, the pallet moves it, and the wheel goes backwards. It recoils. So that's why I call it recoil, because it recoils. It still goes backwards. And that thing said, now recoil, just as put as you please. And I said, that's not a deadbeat escapement. And I looked at it, well, I said, no, don't you say a word to anybody. She would. I was going to tell them about it. No, you don't do it. but that clock was sitting there recoiling instead of being a deadbeat. Well, I met this guy from England named Harold Priestley. I don't know. He wrote a couple of books that NAWCC put out. One about watch case companies. One and another one he wrote about Denison. Denison Watch Case Company. And I ran into him down in Atlanta at an NAWCC meeting. And I was telling him about it. I said, when you go, I said, do you ever go over to Greenwich? He said, well, once in a while, why? And I told him about this clock. He says, don't tell me, tell Jonathan Betts about it. He's the guy who wrote that book. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I don't know him. He said, well, he's around here somewhere. He was there at the time. But I never did see him, so I never did get to ask him about that. But tell him about it once. But I wrote him, I emailed him, and asked him about it. But they never answered my email. I don't know whether they got it or not. But they never answered my email about that deadbeat escapement. One other thing I did while I was there, besides going to the R&D building every day at lunch, I was the dorm mother. We called it the dorm mother. I looked after the dormitory for the school at night and on weekends or whatever. If the guys needed some sheets or something like that, I had the key out to get them the sheets or whatever they needed until the maid got back the next day or whatever. And we had a porter who came in every day about 4 o'clock or so, or just before the school closed down, and he cleaned the school building and all 2 floors of the school building, what have you, and then till about 11 o'clock, and then 11 o'clock at night he went home. Well, when he would clean the basement or what have you, and start working in the school building when he got there, and then after about either 8 or 9 o'clock, all the students would leave the classroom. Before then, if you wanted to work on something, you could go to your workbench and work on anything you wanted to, until 8 or 9 o'clock, and they'd close the school building, and then what was his name? Let's get down. Anyway, he'd finish up his work, and then he'd leave at 11 o'clock. Well, it was almost 11 o'clock one night, and I got a telephone call. No, I didn't get a phone call. He came up there. He said, "Hey, all excited. Come over here, come over. The fire department's over here." I said, "What do you mean fire department's like, come on." So I had to go, the dormitory faced 41st Street. The school was on 42nd Street, and there was a tunnel between them. And so anyway, here we go, boogie down through the tunnel. I get over there, and there's firemen all over the place. And I said, "What in the world is going on?" And this big old fireman says, "We got a call that the school was on fire." And he said, "We can't find the fire." I said, "Well, how'd you get in?" They had taken a fire axe and stuck it between them two automatic doors and twisted it around until they got the door open, and they got in there.
Wow.
So when they got in there was no fire. So they had their hose and everything in there. And so I went out and looked, and over across the street over there at R&D, it looked like a fire was over there, so they all went over there. So we tried to get the doors closed, and it didn't want to do right. So I called Mr. Lipton, the school director, at home, told him what was going on. That the fire department had come there on a false alarm, and it jimmied the doors open, and right now we couldn't get them to close so that the alarm would work. And he said, "Well, you call the alarm." He told me where the number was. He said, "You call the alarm company and tell them to send a guard over there for the night." And he says, "I'll take care of it." I said, "All right." So I hung up with him and go in there, and I looked, found the number for the alarm company, and I called them and told them what was going on and what had happened. And they said, "Well, I'm sorry." I said, "We don't have anybody to send over there." He says, "You'll have to have, somebody else will have to stay there tonight." He said, "But we don't have any officers or guards to send over there. It's not available." I said, "Okay, thank you." So I go out there and I told Jimmy, that was his name, Jimmy. I said, "They don't have a guard to send over here. I got to call Mr. Lipton back and see what he wants to do." And so I called Mr. Lipton back, and while I was talking to him, Jimmy came in and said, "We got it fixed. We got it fixed." I said, "Thank you." So I told Mr. Lipton they had got it so the alarm would work. So the next day he came in. You talking about somebody ticked off. Now he was at that fire department for messing up them doors, because it didn't break them down or anything, but the edge where they had that jimmy that open where that axe, you could see. I reckon they never did repair that. I don't think. Probably did. But anyway,
That was some big doors.
pretty good sized door, and there was two sets of them. It was two sets. When you stepped on the mat outside, two of them would open. Step on another mat, the other two would open. See, coming back out.
How many people were in the school when you were there?
When I was in school, it was not all that many students. I'd say 25 to 30 students. And by this time, most all of the World War II veterans that were going to be had been trained, and they were getting some Korean veterans in, but not very many. And they had started taking in non-disabled students, and also if you were not even if you were a veteran, you got your schooling free. Or you had to pay for your rent and your food and laundry, etc., so forth. But your schooling, so far as tuition and what have you, was free. You had to buy your own tools. Now, a lot of people came there under the state disability departments, and so they had, depending on what state you came from, some states would buy the guys their tools. Some people would pay all the expenses, but a lot of the states wouldn't do it. And the people that were non-disabled at all, but they had to furnish all their own equipment and money and what have you. after, not too long after I left, well, I left in 1960. Oh, I think it closed up in the early 70s. And before it closed up, the student body had gotten down so small, it was just not worth it to keep it open. They couldn't get the students to stay there. But I was considered myself extremely lucky to be able to go to that school and get a trade that to make a living with the rest of my life. And a lot of the guys there, some of them didn't put their training to good use, but most of them did. All of them that I knew of that came by that had been there were good watchmakers. They were well liked by the companies they worked for. We had lots of guys that left Boulevard School and went up to Manhattan to say Rolex and all these big manufacturers in their shops, and they'd come out to the school occasionally when we had holidays or some meetings or whatever, and they'd tell us about what they had been doing and here, there, and everywhere. But the Boulevard School was one of the forerunners of schools for veterans, just for veterans and disabled veterans. We had, then, like I say, later on, they took in disabled civilians and then non-disabled civilians, because like me, if they had to start, I wouldn't have never gone there because I wouldn't have been qualified. But I enjoyed my schooling there, and I appreciated it very much to be able to go there and get to school, because it gave me a job that very few other people had. In fact, I have one man that was a classmate, or he was in school the same time I worked, that lives in Newport, down close to the coast. And there was one other ex-student that lived in the Charlotte area that I never met after I left school. But as far as I know, we're the only three from North Carolina. Now, there may have been others before or after me, I don't know. But I know there was this boy from Charlotte. He was originally from Alabama. And his name escapes me, like a lot of stuff. But I got a lot out of the school, and hopefully you can be as good with your school as Boulevard was with theirs.
If I could be a fraction of how good Boulevard was, I'd be grateful.
I don't know how many students Boulevard trained. I think it was in the area of 900. But
from what I've been told, and I don't have any real facts, but I've been told it's been closer to 1,700.
1,700 could have been. Now they had, besides a watchmaking course, they had I never, what do you call it? It's like a manufacturing course, precision manufacturing stuff. It's not it taught the precision part of the watch repair, but not actually on watches.
Mm-hmm.
They had a few of those people, students in school when I was there, and I think they went to that more than later on, because they got more students for that than they did watchmaking school. I think the number of my diploma is on the back of the diploma, and it's in a frame. But I think mine was about 891.
Yeah, tell me about your Boulevard school ring.
Well, uh, they had a notice that you could get a school ring. Well, I never had a chance to get a school ring anywhere else, so I bought a bull of a school ring. It was made by Deeses and Truss, made in New York City, but the Deeses and Truss company has gone out of business. It was absorbed by another class ring company, and I don't remember which one right now.
How much did you have to pay for it?
Whole $25.
Wow.
for a 10-carat gold ring. Now, that was probably the wholesale price. It was probably sold about $50 or so if you were a high school student or something like that and bought a ring. But it was $25. I figured that was the only chance I'd ever have of getting a school ring, so I latched onto it. In fact, as far as I know, it's the only one in the state of North Carolina. It might not be, but I don't know if anymore.
I've never seen one until you showed me your ring.
The guy down at Newport, he doesn't have one. And as far as I know, he's the only other Bull graduate in the state. Will that work in a close-up?
I don't know if I can get it with this, but I will see what we can do.
Tell them about losing the ring in the lake and finding it.
I lost that in the lake and found it.
He was lucky, I tell you.
He was meant to keep it, that's for sure.
So it's gotten.
I'm going to take a photograph of that, but we'll wait till we're done.
Okay. But we were over at Carr Lake, and I was in water about waist deep, and my finger we got cooled off, I guess. But anyway, the ring was a little bit too big, and it slipped off my finger out there in that water. And I looked, and it was gone. Well, I did not move from where I was, but I started patting my foot around, and I guess I picked up a little balls of mud. And after about 25, 30, 40 minutes, I found something. If I couldn't pick it up with a toe, this is where I could get it up. I'd bend over and pick up a bunch of stuff, and come back up and look, see what I had. And I finally picked up that ring.
Incredible. How long were you the town watchmaker down here in Warren County, North Carolina, Jack?
How long?
Yeah.
Well, I came back here out of school in 1960, and I worked at the bench until, 2012 or 10.
When we closed the store in 2013.
Closed the store in 2013. So, 40, 53 years.
Off and
altogether.
on.
And of course, I did some other jobs off in the meantime. Small town, and the guy I was working for wouldn't raise the prices so we could make any money. So I went to work as a pipe fitter, and I did that for about 20 years, off and on.
Tell the story about the pipe fitter when you were doing the manifold and the guy told you about being a watchmaker.
While I was in the state of North Carolina back in the late 60s, 69, 70, passed a law that watchmakers had to be licensed. Well, all the watchmakers that were working were grandfathered in under the license law to get their license automatically. So I had mine. And while I was working as a pipe fitter at an Allied Chemical job in Hopewell, Virginia, and my buddy and I were making a little tubing manifold for some instrument work, and we had our stuff strode out across the table, and he had 2 wrenches, and I was sighting down the top of these tubing tees, and I would tell him which way to move it, and he would straighten them up and tighten them up so that all these little tees would be straight up and down. So as we were doing that, the piping superintendent came by, and there was an old saying, "Don't take so much time on it, you're not a watchmaker." I'd heard that before. And that's what he said when he walked by. I said, "Hey, wait a minute. I said, "Come back out." So they came back, and I reached in my billfold, and I pulled out my watchmaker's license and handed it to him. And he looked at it, and he looked at me, and I looked at the license. He says, "Are you a watchmaker?" I said, "Yes, sir." He handed it back and says, "I'll be damned," and walked on off. But being a watchmaker did help me out on one job I was on. I was working on a job out from Ahoskie, North Carolina. Farmers and Chemical Supply Company built a fertilizer plant out there on the Chowan River in the middle of nowhere. And the equipment, the major equipment for that plant, the turbines and compressors, etc., so forth, was made by an Italian firm named Nuovo Pignone, which was new pine cone. And everything was in metric measurements. All the drawings were in metric. And most of these guys, my contemporaries, pipers, plumbers, they never had anything to do with metric figures. They didn't know what a metric figure was, hardly. But I was lucky in that I had been taught metric figures because all Swiss watches are measured in metric measurements. So I knew what a millimeter was, and a centimeter, and a meter, and all this stuff. So when we started running pipe on these turbines and what have you, as I said, a 50 millimeter pipe compared to our 2-inch. And that's what we used, 2-inch pipe. It was a 25 millimeter, it was a 1-inch pipe. It was 12.5 millimeters, it was a 1/2-inch pipe, or 12 or 13 millimeters. So the guys would get to something they couldn't figure out, they'd come to me and said, "Tell me what this darn metric's best." So I explained it to them the best I could. So I was at the hardware store one day, and I found a 12-foot extension rule, and by luck it had metric measurements on one side and English measurements on the other side. I said, "Here's the answer to my problem." And somebody would come up and said, how many inches is so many millimeters?" I'd pull out my rule, I'd pull it out to, if it was 13 inches, I'd pull it out 13, and right beside it will give you the metric measurement. If you wanted to go the other way, if you wanted to get 75 millimeters, you want to see how many inches it was, you pull it out to 75 millimeters, right beside it was the inches. And so that solved a whole lot of problems that we had. But the Nuovo Pignone was from Florence, Italy. Now, there's also a Florence in South Carolina, in our town. Well, we were working on this compressor, and we needed a valve for it. Well, Nuovo Pignone furnished all the valves and this and that, and everything but the pipe. So my general foreman, or foreman, White at England, says, "Where is this valve?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, where do you get it?" I said, "You got to get it from the Italians." We had 3 Italian tech reps there on the job. He said, "Well, let's go." So we went over there to the Italian's office with the print, and he told the guy, he says, "We need this valve that goes here." I said, "Un momento. Wait a minute." So he goes back down and looks in his card file, and he says, "It's not here." And Whitey says, "Well, where is it?" It's in the Florence. The Florence, South Carolina, that ain't too far away. No, not to South Carolina. Florence, Italy.
Sounds like you enjoyed yourself as a watchmaker.
Oh, yeah. Oh, every watch is different. I don't care how many you do. If you can work on 5 chronographs in a row, all the same brand, the same model, everything's going to be different. You're not going to get 2 watches exactly alike. I don't care what you do, where you come from. There's always some new under the sun and inside a watch. For me, anyhow, a lot of guys say, well, they said so and so, but it's always different meaning. My problem was in watches was sometimes finding the part and finding out where to find the part. One thing I remember, I bought an Omega chronograph from an auction. But it had been rusted, and some watchmaker had taken it apart and taken all the rusted parts out and cleaned the movement and sold it as it was. Well, I bought it at the auction, and when I got it home, I went through and I saw what parts I needed, and so I ordered all the parts. I got the watch running. When I put it in the case, there was a piece missing. There was a piece that went between the button and the return button, or lever. And I looked in my best fit book, and it wasn't listed. And the salesman from Casco Company came by, and I said, Bill, I need a watch part, and I can't find it. They said, well, what do you need? And I showed him what I need. He said, well, let me call the shop. So he called Casco, and he got to talking to the guy in the Swiss department, and explained what he knew. And the guy said, well, I don't know what it is. I don't know where you'd find out. He says, I don't have anything on that. So I just let it rest. So the NAWCC had a meeting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So my wife and I went to Lancaster to the meeting, and while we were there, the people from Hamilton, or actually the Swiss watchmakers, or who was, anyway, they took us over to the old Hamilton factory and into what was the research and development building. It was where they repaired all these Omegas and Hamiltons and everything that were sent back for service. And while I was there, it struck me, I says, aha, I can find my part for my chronograph. So as the guy gave me a little thing, I says, who works on chronographs? And he says, the guy up yonder, about third one from the end, says he's a chronograph technician. So I go up and I tell this guy, I said, I'll explain what I needed. Oh yeah, I know which one. He pulled open a drawer here. He had a cabinet about this wide, about this high, with about 6 drawers in it. He pulled his cabinet over, took his tweezer, reached in, and picked up this little deal. He said, here's what you need right here. And he put it back in there. He wouldn't let me have one. He says, it's not a watch movement part, it's a case part. You've got to get it from a case list, parts list. Okay, so at least I found out the part that I know my needing and got the part to finish my watch. But that guy wouldn't give me one of those things. It didn't cost but 50 cents at that time, and he wouldn't give me one. So, but anyhow, we got it back anyhow. They had, when they got in those watches from private owners and stores and what have you, they would take the dial, they would put a number on it, and put each watch in its individual container. And everything was had the name and number and address and all this stuff on it. But they would take the movement out, take the dial, hands off, and the crown, and unless they were going to put a new crown on their watch. And the watch movement went over here in a pile. And all the case and the dial and all that stuff, that went on down the line, and somebody would take a watch movement out of a box over here, or a tray or whatever, and put the dial and hands on it, assemble the watch, test it out, and send it back. Well, after they got a truckload of these movements here that was one running. They had it. Everybody would get in line. They would disassemble all these movements and put the movement parts in a basket. And when they had all the movements taken apart, they put them in. They had this huge watch cleaning machine. It was at least 6 feet in diameter and about 4 feet deep. The man said it would hold 5,000 watch movements at one time.
Wow.
And they put all them watch movements in there and clean them. I don't know how long it took to clean them, but they'd clean all those movements and dry them, and then set them back out, and then they would start, and each one of them was in this individual can, more or less, basket or whatever it was that was disassembled. And they go back through the assembly line, assembling those movements back again. And then when it got down all fully assembled, they would check them out. And once they got them running right, then when they would put them in store for the next watch that came through, they needed a watch movement.
Wow.
I always wondered how they did that. I found out up there in Lancaster.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
It's been a real pleasure for me. And I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say to future watchmakers, but if you do, please feel free to do that.
Well, anybody going into the watch repair field, like anything else, you need to know as much about it as you can. If you don't know, somebody else does. Even if you have to call somebody, send them an email, or join your local state association, watchmaker association, your local association, or guild if you have one, or join American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute. I've been a member since 1960. My number is 3862. When I call AWC, I tell them one of the old coots is calling. And occasionally I get somebody in Columbia that says, I've never had anybody call with a number that low before. But get as much information as you can from any place you can about any watch you're working on before you start working on it. If you got a watch you're not familiar with, make sure you get a repair manual, or if it's real complicated, let somebody else do it. Don't get in above your head. I've done it, so I know it's best not to do it. I've got a chronograph apart right now that I can't get it back together. And in fact, I think I've lost some of the parts to it. But that's a different story, a different time. But as far as the Boulevard School, I was really lucky to be able to go to the Boulevard School and learn a craft that would take care of me for the rest of my life. And if anybody goes to the Veterans Watchmakers Initiative and gets a diploma in watchmaking from them, they can do the same thing. They can take care of themselves and their family at an honorable job. But you got to stick with it. Learn all the intricacies, and the more you learn, the better off you will be.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for taking the time to do this.